Taeyang Park stood outside the diplomatic quarters, trying not to yawn. His shift had started 3 hours ago, and nothing had happened. Nothing ever happened on this assignment. He checked his watch for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Still another 4 hours to go. The door slid open with a soft hiss. The alien woman stepped out, moving slowly and carefully. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. Her eyes were large and dark, like pools of ink. She wore simple gray robes that covered most of her body. "Good morning," Taeyang said, keeping his voice neutral and professional. He had learned that loud sounds made her uncomfortable. The small device clipped to her collar crackled to life. "Morning." "Good," it translated in a flat, mechanical voice. Lyra didn't look at him. She never looked directly at anyone. Taeyang gestured down the corridor. "The meeting room is ready. We'll take the same route as yesterday." She nodded once and began walking. Taeyang fell into step behind her, maintaining the required 3-foot distance. The Velans didn't like people getting too close. It was in all the briefing materials he had read when he first got this assignment. The station corridor was quiet this early in the morning. Most of the crew were still sleeping or just starting their shifts. Their footsteps echoed softly against the metal floors. Taeyang kept one hand near his weapon, though he doubted he would ever need it. This was the easiest job on Harmony 7. "How's the babysitting going?" Minjae had asked him yesterday in the cafeteria, grinning wide. Taeyang had shrugged. "Easy pay. She doesn't cause any trouble." "Does she even talk?" Through the translator. "But not much." Minjae had laughed. "Man, you got lucky. I'm stuck doing hull inspections in Sector 9. That's real work." "Lucky?" "Yeah, that's what everyone said." Taeyang wasn't so sure. Easy work was boring work. He had joined station security because he wanted action, challenge, something to use his training for. Instead, he was escorting a quiet alien woman from room to room like some kind of tour guide. They reached the meeting room. The door opened automatically, and Lyra stepped inside. Through the doorway, Taeyang could see the human diplomats already seated at the long table. Commander Hee-won Choi was there too, looking sharp in her uniform. She gave Taeyang a brief nod. "Wait here," she said. "The session will last about 2 hours." Taeyang took his position outside the door. 2 hours of standing. Great. He shifted his weight from foot to foot and tried to stay alert. The morning passed slowly. When the meeting finally ended, Lyra emerged, looking the same as always. Calm. Quiet. Almost invisible despite her size. The diplomats filed out, talking among themselves. They barely glanced at the alien woman. "Everything okay?" Hee-won asked Taeyang. "Yes, Commander. No problems." "Good. Keep it that way." The afternoon routine was identical. Another meeting, another long wait. Taeyang's mind wandered. He thought about his friends back on Earth. About the military training that felt like a lifetime ago. About whether this job was really where he wanted to be. Finally, evening came. The last meeting of the day ended at 6 o'clock. Taeyang escorted Lyra to the diplomatic dining hall. This was always the strangest part of his day. Watching her eat, the Velans had different food requirements. Lyra sat alone at a small table while the human diplomats gathered at the main table across the room. A server brought her a tray of what looked like purple gel and small white cubes. She ate slowly, carefully, using a strange utensil that looked like a combination of a spoon and chopsticks. Taeyang stood near the wall, watching. He noticed how the humans kept glancing at her. Curious looks. Some uncomfortable. The Velans were one of the most advanced species in known space. Their technology was centuries ahead of human science. Their ships could cross distances that would take human vessels months. But here, in this dining hall, Lyra looked small and alone. Something about that bothered Taeyang, though he couldn't quite say why. Dinner ended. Time for the final escort of the day. Back to her quarters. They walked through the corridors again. The station was busier now. With the evening shift in full swing, crew members passed them, some staring openly at Lyra. She kept her eyes down, ignoring them all. They took the elevator to the diplomatic wing. It was quieter here, more secure. Only authorized personnel could access this section. The doors were heavier, the walls reinforced. This was where visiting dignitaries stayed when they came to negotiate with Earth's government. As they walked, something unexpected happened. The corridor was narrow, and another crew member came around the corner quickly. Tae-Yang stepped aside to let them pass, but in doing so, he moved closer to Lyra. His hand brushed against hers for just a second. She jerked away like she had been burned. Her translator made a sound that might have been a gasp. She pressed herself against the wall, her dark eyes wide. "Sorry," Tae-Yang said quickly, raising his hands. "Accident. I'm sorry." Lyra stood frozen for a moment. Then she nodded stiffly and continued walking. But faster now. Tae-Yang followed, careful to keep his distance. He had read about this in the briefing. Velans considered unexpected touch to be offensive, almost violent. Their culture valued personal space above almost everything else. They reached her quarters. The door recognized her biological signature and slid open. Lyra started to step inside, then paused. She turned slightly, not quite looking at Tae-Yang. Her translator crackled. "You. Not like others. You watch. You notice." Tae-Yang blinked, surprised. It was the most she had ever said to him directly. "I'm just doing my job." "Yes, job." The translator made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Thank you." For today, before he could respond, she stepped inside. The door began to close. But then she turned back one more time, and for just a second, her dark eyes met his. "Be careful, Taeyong Park," she said through the translator. "Tomorrow may be different." The door slid shut. Taeyang stood in the corridor, staring at the closed door. That was odd. Very odd. How did she know his full name? And what did she mean about tomorrow being different? He shook his head. Probably nothing. Maybe Velans were just strange like that. He logged the end of his shift and headed back to his own quarters. As he walked away, he didn't see Lyra inside her room. Standing by the window, looking out at Neptune's swirling blue storms, he didn't see her remove the translator device and speak in perfect, unaccented English. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty room. "I'm so sorry for what's coming." In the corridor outside, the security systems logged normal status. All quiet in the diplomatic wing. Another boring day on Harmony 7. Tomorrow would be different indeed. The next evening started like all the others. Taeyang escorted Lyra from the final diplomatic session back toward her quarters. She had been even quieter than usual all day. During the meetings, she had barely used her translator at all. The human diplomats seemed relieved. Less interaction meant less awkwardness. They rode the elevator in silence. Taeyang watched the floor numbers climb, level after level, rising toward the diplomatic wing at the top of the station's habitation section. The elevator hummed softly. "You seem tired," Taeyang said, trying to make conversation. The silence was getting to him. Lyra's translator crackled. "Yes, tired. Long day." The elevator doors opened. They walked down the familiar corridor toward her quarters. Taeyang had made this walk dozens of times now. He knew every turn, every door, every security panel. It was routine. They reached her door. It slid open automatically. Lyra stepped inside, and Taeyang followed. This was standard procedure. Before locking down for the night, he had to do a quick security sweep of the room. Check the windows, check the ventilation, make sure nothing was out of place. It took less than a minute, but regulations were regulations. Lyra moved to the large viewing window that took up most of the far wall. Outside, Neptune filled the view. The massive planet's blue-green surface swirled with storms larger than Earth itself. Streaks of white clouds raced across the atmosphere at incredible speeds. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Taeyang said, as he checked the ventilation panel. "Yes," Lyra replied. Her voice through the translator sounded different somehow, less mechanical. "Beautiful and terrible. Like many things." Taeyang glanced at her. but she was just staring at Neptune. He shrugged and continued his sweep. Bathroom clear. Closet clear. Sleep area clear. Everything normal. Okay, he said, moving back toward the door. You're all set for the night. Sleep well. He stepped into the doorway. Behind him, he heard Lyra speak. Taeyong. He turned. She was still facing the window. Yes? I'm sorry. Before he could ask what she meant, the door slid shut behind him with a sharp click. Taeyang spun around. His hand went to his security badge automatically, reaching to activate the door. The panel glowed red. Access denied. What? Taeyang tapped his badge again. Still red. He tried the manual override. Nothing. The door was completely locked. Then the alarm started. A piercing wail filled the air. Red lights began flashing along the walls. The station's emergency system came to life, and Commander Hee-won's voice echoed through the speakers. Attention all personnel. Emergency lockdown in effect. Radiation leak detected in the diplomatic wing. All sections are now sealed. Do not attempt to leave your current location. Containment teams are responding. Repeat. This is not a drill. Taeyong's heart raced. Radiation leak? Here? He grabbed his communicator. Commander Choi. This is Park. I'm sealed in the diplomatic quarters with the Velen guest. What's the situation? Static. His communicator was dead. He checked the settings. Everything showed normal. But there was no signal. The emergency systems must be interfering. Damn it. He turned to face Lyra. Did you hear that? There's a radiation leak. We need to. He stopped. Lyra was looking directly at him now. Not at the floor. Not at the wall. But straight into his eyes. Her posture was different too. She stood taller. Straighter. The nervous, fragile quality she always carried was gone. I know, she said. Her translator spoke the words. But something was wrong. The timing was off. Her mouth moved differently than the translator's rhythm. Taeyong's training kicked in. Something was very wrong here. You know? What do you mean you know? Lyra reached up and removed the translator device from her collar. She held it in her hand for a moment, then set it down on the nearby table. I know, she said again. But this time, the words came from her own mouth. Perfect English, with barely any accent. This was inevitable. Well, Taeyong felt cold. You speak English? Yes. The whole time, you've been pretending. Yes. His hand moved to his weapon. Who are you? Really? Lyra raised her hands slowly, showing they were empty. My name is Lyra. That part is true. But I'm not a diplomat. I never was. Then what are you? A fugitive. She moved away from the window, walking slowly toward the door. Taeyong tensed, but she stopped a safe distance away. She knelt down and examined the door's locking mechanism with practiced eyes. And in about 10 minutes, the people hunting me are going to come through this door. Taeyong kept his hand on his weapon. Explained. Now. Lyra looked up at him. The radiation leak is fake. There is no leak. Velen agents are on this station. They triggered the emergency lockdown to isolate me. To trap me here. Why would they do that? Because I stole something from them. Evidence. Proof of what my people really are. She stood up and walked to the window again, looking out at Neptune. Everyone thinks the Velens are peaceful, advanced, civilized. We let you think that because it's useful. What's the truth? Lyra touched the window with one long finger. The truth is, we've been experimenting on other species for centuries, taking them apart to understand how they work, using what we learned to improve our own biology. Your scientists wonder how we advanced so quickly. That's how. We steal from everyone we meet. Taeyong felt sick. That's impossible. The UN would know. Someone would have found out. The UN knows what we allow them to know. We're very good at hiding things. She turned to face him again. But I found the records. Thousands of subjects over hundreds of years. Different species, different worlds, all of them taken, studied, and disposed of. Why tell me this? Why come to Earth at all? Because humans have a reputation. You're stubborn, unpredictable. You don't follow the rules that other species accept. When powerful people tell you to be quiet, you get louder. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I brought you the evidence, you might actually do something about it. Taeyang's mind was racing. This was insane. But it explained so much. The quiet behavior, the avoiding eye contact, the way she seemed to be hiding. Where's this evidence now? Hidden in the station's data core, encrypted. If something happens to me, it releases automatically. And the agents coming for you? Will kill me if they can, capture me if they must. Either way, the evidence disappears, and my people continue their work. Lyra walked back toward him. I'm sorry I involved you in this. I didn't think they would move so quickly. The lockdown was supposed to give me more time. Taeyang looked at the door, then back at Lyra. Every instinct told him this was wrong. His job was to protect diplomatic guests, not get involved in interstellar conspiracies. He should restrain her, wait for Commander Choi to sort this out. But then he thought about the briefings. The way the Velans always seemed one step ahead. The technology they shared that never quite made sense. The questions that went unanswered. And he thought about the experiments she described. Thousands of beings, taken and used like laboratory animals. How long do we have? He asked. Lyra looked surprised. You believe me? I'm not sure yet. But I'm listening. How long? She checked the door again, running her fingers along the frame. They're cutting through the main locks now. Slowly, so they don't trigger more alarms. Maybe 8 minutes. And you can fight? I'm Velan. I'm stronger than you. Faster reflexes, better healing. But I've never been in combat. My people don't train for violence. She smiled, and it was bitter. We prefer to hurt others quietly. In laboratories where they can't fight back. Taeyang made his decision. Maybe it was the wrong one. Maybe he was being manipulated. But standing here doing nothing felt worse than taking a chance. He moved to the room's desk and started pulling it toward the door. Then I'll teach you. Lesson 1. We might not be the strongest, but humans know how to adapt. Lyra stared at him. You're going to help me? I'm going to defend this position until I know what's really happening. If you're lying, I'll deal with that later. If you're telling the truth. He grabbed a chair and wedged it under the door handle. Then we've got bigger problems than a locked door. If, outside, in the corridor, something sparked. The cutting had begun. Lyra picked up the heavy table with one hand, moving it like it weighed nothing. What do we do? Taeyang smiled grimly. We show them what happens when they corner a human. We make them regret it. Taeyang moved fast. Years of military training kicked in, his mind switching from confused guard to tactical soldier. He scanned the room, evaluating what they had to work with. Not much. A bed, a desk, chairs, some decorative panels on the walls. A bathroom with basic supplies. We need weapons, he said, grabbing the desk lamp. He smashed it against the floor. The metal base broke free from the plastic shade. Jagged edges. Good for striking. He handed it to Lyra. Can you use this? She held it awkwardly. I don't know. I've never hit anyone. You're about to learn. Taeyang went to the bathroom and returned with a bottle of cleaning solution. He opened it and sniffed. Chemical smell. Harsh. Is this dangerous to Velans? It would burn our eyes. We're sensitive to perfect. He set it aside and grabbed the towels, tearing them into strips. We'll use it if we need to. Lyra watched him work with something like amazement. You're making weapons from bathroom supplies? From whatever we have. That's what humans do. He moved to the wall panels and started prying one loose. The metal underneath was thin but sharp. He twisted it until a piece broke free, another makeshift blade. Your people might have better technology. but we're good at improvising. Clom. The sparking sound from the door grew louder. Whoever was cutting through was making progress. Listen carefully, Taeyang said, moving the heavy furniture to create a barrier. When they come through, they'll expect you to surrender. They know you're not a fighter. How is that an advantage? Because they're not expecting me, and they're not expecting you to fight back. He positioned the table on its side, creating a wall between the door and the rest of the room. When the door opens, stay behind this. Let them come in. Then what? Then we hurt them. Taeyang grabbed one of the chairs and tested its weight. Solid enough. How many are coming? Lyra closed her eyes, concentrating. 3. Maybe 4. Standard retrieval team. Armed? Yes. Plasma cutters. Stun weapons. They won't want to kill me if they can avoid it. I'm more valuable alive. What about me? You're human. They won't hesitate to kill you. Taeyang nodded. Expected. What else should I know about Velens in a fight? Taeyang, Lyra thought for a moment. We're stronger than you. Our bones are denser. Our skin is tougher. But we're taught to avoid conflict from childhood. Violence is considered primitive. If you hurt one of us, we're trained to retreat and reassess. So they're not used to someone fighting back. No. Good. Taeyang poured some of the cleaning solution into a cup and placed it near the entrance. Here's the plan. They breach the door. First one through gets this in the face. While they're blind and confused, you hit them with everything you have. Don't hold back. Velens might be stronger, but strength doesn't matter if you don't know how to use it. I don't understand. If they're stronger, fighting isn't about strength. It's about will. About adapting. About using your enemy's expectations against them. He demonstrated a basic stance. Stand like this. Weight on your back leg. When you strike, put your whole body into it. Lyra copied him, moving with surprising grace. Her long limbs gave her reach. With training, she would be formidable. But they had minutes, not months. You said you've never hit anyone. Taeyang continued. That's okay. Don't think about it. Just react. When I say move, you move. When I say strike, you strike. Understand? Yes. The door sparked more violently. Smoke began to seep through the edges. They're almost through, Lyra whispered. Taeyang picked up his weapon, the sharp piece of metal from the wall panel. It wasn't much, but it would do. One more thing. Humans have a saying. Cornered prey bites hardest. They think we're cornered. They think we're prey. Let's show them they're wrong. Lyra gripped her makeshift weapon tighter. I'm afraid. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Use it. Taeyang took his position behind the overturned table. Get ready. Get ready. The door hissed. The cutting was complete. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the door exploded inward with a blast of force. 3 figures in dark suits stepped through the smoke, Velens, tall and imposing, carrying sleek weapons that hummed with energy. The first one spoke in their language, words that Lyra understood but Taeyang didn't. She responded in the same language, her voice steady. What did they say? Taeyang whispered. They told me to surrender. I told them no. The lead Velen seemed confused. They spoke again, more forcefully. They say I'm being irrational. That humans have corrupted my thinking. What did you tell them? That they're about to find out what humans can do. The lead Velen raised their weapon. That was all the warning Taeyang needed. He grabbed the cup of cleaning solution and threw it hard. The liquid arced through the air and splashed across the Velen's face. The effect was immediate. The Velen screamed, dropping their weapon and clawing at their eyes. The other 2 agents froze, shocked by the sudden violence. Now, Taeyang shouted. Lyra moved. She swung the metal lamp base with all her strength. It connected with the second agent's head with a sickening crack. The Velen staggered, not expecting the attack from one of their own kind. Taeyang vaulted over the table and went for the third agent. The Velan was faster. Raising their weapon, But Taeyang was already inside their reach. He struck with the metal shard, aiming for the weapon hand. The Velen's skin was tough, but the sharp metal still cut through. Blue blood welled from the wound. The agent dropped the weapon and stumbled back, shocked. They looked at their bleeding hand, then at Taeyang, as if unable to process what had happened. Lesson 2, Taeyang said, breathing hard. We don't quit. The second agent, the one Lyra had hit, was getting back up. Taeyang saw them reaching for something on their belt. Another weapon. Lyra, behind you. She turned and saw the threat. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she remembered Taeyang's words. Don't think. React. She threw her weapon like a spear. Her Velen's strength made it fly true. It struck the agent in the shoulder, and they went down hard. The first agent, the one with burning eyes, was still on the ground, gasping and crying. The second was unconscious. The third was backing toward the door, cradling their injured hand. Retreat, they said in English, their voice shaking. This is not possible. You are Velen. You do not fight. I learned from humans, Lyra said coldly. Surprise! The third agent fled into the corridor. Taeyang wanted to chase them, but he knew better. More might be coming. They needed to move fast. We can't stay here, he said, checking the fallen agents. He grabbed 2 of the Velen weapons, studying them quickly. The controls were different, but intuitive. He handed one to Lyra. Can you use this? Yes. Then we're leaving. We need to reach the command center and tell Commander Choi what's happening. They'll have blocked the main corridors. Then we use the maintenance tunnels. Taeyang moved to the door, checking the corridor. Empty for now. I know this station. I can get us there. Lyra looked at the unconscious agents on the floor. Her people. I can't believe I just did that. You did what you had to. You survived. Taeyang put a hand on her shoulder, then quickly removed it, remembering Velen customs. You fought back. That's more than they expected. Is this what it's like? Being human? This constant adapting? Pretty much. We're not the strongest or the smartest, but we're stubborn, and we learn fast. He smiled slightly. Welcome to the human way of doing things. Outside, alarms still blared. The lockdown was still in effect. Somewhere in the station, more Velen agents were moving. And somewhere beyond, Velen ships were likely approaching. But for now, they had won. 2 fighters against impossible odds, using nothing but improvised weapons and determination. Taeyang led the way into the corridor, Lyra following close behind. They had a long way to go. But they had taken the first step. They had refused to be victims. And that made all the difference. The maintenance corridor was dark and cramped. Taeyang led the way, holding the Velen weapon ready. Behind him, Lyra moved quietly despite her size. She was learning fast. Too fast, maybe. It worried him how quickly she had adapted to violence. How much further? She whispered. 2 more junctions, then we can access the main lift shaft. From there, we climb to the command level. Climb? The elevators are locked down. We go up the maintenance ladder. He paused at an intersection, listening. Footsteps echoed somewhere nearby. They're searching for us. They pressed against the wall, waiting. The footsteps passed without finding them. Taeyang let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. They moved forward again, passing through narrow spaces filled with pipes and cables. The station's guts, hidden from the clean corridors where diplomats walked. Taeyang had studied these routes during training, never thinking he would actually need them. I have a question, Lyra said softly. Make it quick. Why are you helping me? You don't know if I'm telling the truth. You're risking your career, maybe your life. Why? Taeyang didn't answer immediately. He checked another corner, then continued forward. Because if you're lying, I can deal with that later. But if you're telling the truth and I did nothing, I couldn't live with myself. That's the human part of this. We don't always make the smart choice. Sometimes we make the right choice instead. They reached the lift shaft access panel. Taeyang pried it open with his fingers, revealing a dark vertical tunnel with a ladder running up the side. Far above, he could see a dim light marking the command level. "Long climb," he muttered. A sound behind them made him spin around. 3 Velen agents emerged from the corridor they had just left. These ones were ready, weapons raised, moving in formation. "Go!" Taeyang shoved Lyra toward the shaft. "Climb. I'll hold them." "No, I won't leave you." "That's an order." He fired the Velen weapon at the approaching agents. The plasma bolt scorched the wall beside them, making them scatter. "Go." Lyra hesitated one more second, then started climbing. Taeyang fired again, forcing the agents to take cover behind the pipes. He backed toward the shaft. Weapons still raised, one agent leaned out and fired back. The plasma bolt seared past Taeyang's head. So close he felt the heat. He returned fire, then grabbed the ladder and started climbing. Below, the agents rushed forward. One grabbed his ankle. Taeyang kicked hard, connecting with their face. They fell back, cursing in their language. But another was already climbing after him. "Faster!" Lyra called from above. Taeyang climbed as fast as he could, but the Velen below was gaining. They were faster, stronger. They would catch him before he reached the top. The agent grabbed his leg again, this time with a grip like iron. Taeyang felt himself slipping. He hooked his arm through the ladder rung and kicked backward with his free leg. His boot connected with something soft. The agent grunted but didn't let go. "Taeyang!" Lyra was climbing back down toward him. "Stay up there." But she ignored him. She reached him just as the agent tried to pull Taeyang off the ladder entirely. Lyra grabbed the agent's arm and twisted. There was a crack, and the agent screamed. Their grip loosened. They fell, hitting the bottom of the shaft with a heavy thud. More plasma bolts fired from below. One struck the ladder near Taeyang's hand. The metal glowed red-hot. He jerked away, losing his grip. For a terrible moment, he felt himself falling. Lyra caught him. Her hand closed around his wrist with inhuman strength. "I have you." She pulled him up, climbing one-handed while holding him with the other. Below, the agents were climbing after them, firing as they came. Plasma bolts scorched the air around them. They reached the top. Taeyang scrambled through the access hatch, then turned to help Lyra. She pulled herself up just as another plasma bolt struck where she had been a second before. "Close it!" she shouted. Taeyang slammed the hatch shut and locked it from the inside. They could hear the agents pounding on it from below, but it would hold for a while. They were in another maintenance corridor, this one better lit. Taeyang leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. Almost falling had scared him more than he wanted to admit. "You came back for me," he said. "You stayed behind for me. We're even." Lyra checked her weapon. "How much further?" "Just through that door." "Then, we're in the command-level corridor. Hwan's office is..." The wall exploded beside them. Not the door. The actual wall. Someone had cut through it from the other side. Smoke and sparks filled the air. Through the hole stepped a Velen agent bigger than the others, wearing armor that made them look like a walking tank. "Retrieval specialist," Lyra said quietly. They sent a heavy unit. The specialist raised a weapon that looked more like a small cannon. They spoke in the Velen language. Lyra translated without being asked. "They say surrender or die. Last chance." Taeyang looked at the massive Velen, then at his small weapon. "No contest. They couldn't win a straight fight. But humans never fought straight. The pipes," he whispered. "Above them. See?" Lyra looked up. "Water pipes, pressurized." "What about them?" "Shoot them, full power." She understood immediately. She aimed and fired. The plasma bolt struck the pipes dead center. They exploded with tremendous force, spraying high-pressure water directly onto the armored Velen. The specialist was knocked backward by the sheer force of it. "Run!" Taeyang grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her forward, past the stunned specialist. They splashed through the water and burst through the door into the command-level corridor. Immediately, alarms changed tone. They had triggered sensors by entering a restricted area without authorization. But that meant security would respond. That meant help was coming. They ran down the corridor. Behind them, the specialist was recovering, roaring in anger. Heavy footsteps pounded after them. There. Taeyang pointed at the command center door ahead. So close. Just a little further. The specialist fired. The plasma bolt hit Taeyang in the shoulder. Pain exploded through him like nothing he had ever felt. He stumbled. Falling to his knees, his whole left side went numb, then started burning. Taeyang. Lyra skidded to a stop. Keep going, he gasped. The pain was incredible. He looked down at his shoulder. The wound was bad. Burned and bleeding. Get to HFY. Tell her everything. No. Lyra's voice was hard. She grabbed him and lifted him like he weighed nothing. We go together. She ran, carrying him, as the specialist pursued. Taeyang's vision swam with pain, but he forced himself to stay conscious. They were so close. Just a few more meters. The command center door was ahead. Lyra slammed into it with her shoulder. The door buckled but didn't break. Behind them, the specialist was raising their weapon again. Again! Taeyang shouted through gritted teeth. Lyra hit the door a second time. It gave way, and they tumbled through into the command center. A dozen human security officers spun around, weapons drawn. Commander HFY stood at the center console, her eyes wide. Hold fire, she commanded. Then she saw Taeyang's wound. Medical team, now! The specialist appeared in the doorway. But now they faced a dozen armed humans in a fortified position. Even their armor wouldn't help. They hesitated. Stand down, HFY ordered, her weapon trained on the Velen. You're in violation of diplomatic protocols. Surrender immediately. The specialist looked at Lyra, then at Taeyang bleeding in her arms. They said something in Velen. Lyra's face hardened. What did they say? HFY demanded. They said this isn't over. That more are coming. Taeyang tried to speak, but the pain was too much. His vision was fading. The last thing he saw was Lyra's face above him, those dark eyes filled with something he had never seen before. Concern. Real, genuine concern. For him, stay with me, she said. Don't quit. You taught me humans don't quit. So don't you dare. He wanted to tell her he wouldn't, that he'd fight to stay conscious. But the darkness pulled him under, and everything went black. When he woke, the real fight would begin. Taeyang woke to the smell of medical gel and the soft beeping of monitors. His shoulder throbbed with a dull, distant pain. Good drugs, he thought hazily. Really good drugs. He's awake, a voice said, Lyra's voice. He opened his eyes. The medical bay. White walls. Bright lights. Lyra sat in a chair beside his bed, looking tired. Commander HFY stood near the door with Minjae and two other security officers. How long? Taeyang asked. His voice came out rough. 6 hours, HFY said. The medical team patched you up. Plasma burns are nasty, see in Barda, but you'll recover. The shoulder will hurt for a while. Taeyang tried to sit up. Lyra moved to help him, then caught herself and stopped. Old habits. He managed it on his own, wincing. What happened while I was out? HFY's expression was grim. A lot. Lyra told us everything. We detained the Velen agents on the station. But we have a bigger problem. Long-range sensors picked up 3 Velen cruisers approaching. They'll be here in less than an hour. They're coming for her, Taeyang said. Yes, and we can't fight them. 1 Velen cruiser could destroy this station. 3 could wipe out every human ship in the area. HFY crossed her arms. The diplomatic solution is to hand Lyra over. End this before it escalates. No, Taeyang said immediately. It's not your decision, Park. Then make it mine. Sir. She has evidence. Proof of what the Velens have been doing. If we give her up, that evidence dies with her. If we don't give her up, we all might die. Hewan looked at Lyra. No offense. None taken, Lyra replied quietly. Commander Choi is right. The logical choice is to surrender me. I knew the risks when I came here. I'm prepared to face them. I'm not, Taeyang said. He looked at Hewan. There has to be another way. Something they're not expecting. Minjae spoke up from the doorway. What if we make it impossible for them to take her quietly? They want this secret, right? So what if we make it not secret anymore? Hewan frowned. Explain. The evidence Lyra has, Minjae continued. What if we broadcast it? Send it to every station, every ship, every settlement in human space. Hell, send it to the other alien species too. Make it so public they can't cover it up. That would start a war, Hewan said. Maybe, Taeyang said, his mind racing. Or maybe it would stop one. Think about it. Right now, they can attack us and say whatever they want about why. But if everyone knows the truth, if we expose what they've been doing, then attacking us just confirms their guilt. Lyra stood up suddenly. It could work. The Velen Consortium survives on its reputation. They're the peaceful, advanced species. The ones who help younger civilizations. If that image is destroyed, their whole political structure collapses. They'd have to choose. Taeyang said, getting excited despite the pain. Admit the truth and face consequences. Or attack us and prove they're everything the evidence says they are. Hewan was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to Minjae. Can we do it? Broadcast that kind of data volume before they arrive? If we use the emergency communication array, yes. It'll take about 20 minutes to encode and send everything. Do it. Hewan made her decision. Get that evidence from the data core. Prepare it for broadcast. We'll send it to every major hub in human space and to the other known species. Everyone gets to see what the Velens have been hiding. Lyra moved to the medical computer and entered a long string of commands. Access code for the encrypted files. They're in Data Core Section 7. Subsystem 12. Minjae nodded and left quickly with another officer. Hewan activated her communicator. All hands, this is Commander Choi. Prepare for possible hostile action. Battle stations. This is not a drill. Throughout the station, alarms began to sound. Different alarms this time, not lockdown, but combat readiness. Taeyang had heard them in training but never in real life. You should stay here, Hewan told him. You're injured. With respect, sir, no. I'm Lyra's security officer. That's still my job. Hewan looked like she wanted to argue, then shrugged. Fine. But stay in the command center. I want you where I can see you. They made their way to the command center. Taeyang moved slowly, his shoulder protesting every step. Lyra walked beside him. Not touching but ready to help if he needed it. The command center was organized chaos. Officers at every station, calling out status reports. On the main screen, 3 blips showed the Velen cruisers getting closer. Broadcast ready in 10 minutes, Minjae reported from the communications station. Velen ships are hailing us, another officer called out. Put them through, Hewan ordered. The screen changed to show a Velen officer in an elaborate uniform. They spoke in their language, and a computer-generated translation appeared below. Station Harmony 7. You are harboring a criminal. Surrender the fugitive Lyra immediately, and this incident will be forgotten. Hewan stepped forward. This is Commander Hewan Choi. We've detained all Velen nationals on this station, pending investigation of serious allegations. Stand down and prepare for diplomatic discussions. The Velen officer's expression didn't change. You have 10 minutes to comply. After that, we will take necessary action. The screen went dark. Broadcast ready in 5 minutes, Minjae said. They won't wait that long, Taeyang said. They're going to attack before we can send it. Hewan knew he was right. Can we speed it up? Not without corrupting the data. It needs the full encoding, or it won't transmit properly. On the screen, the Velen cruisers were changing formation, attack pattern. Taeyang had seen enough tactical displays to recognize it. They're charging weapons, an officer confirmed. 4 minutes left. The station couldn't withstand even one shot from a Velen cruiser. Everyone knew it. The command center was silent, except for the quiet beeping of computers. Lyra stepped forward. "I'll go to them. Stop the broadcast." "Like hell," Taeyang said. "He's right," Hee-won agreed. "We made our choice. We see it through. That's what humans do." 3 minutes. 2 minutes. The Velen ship's weapons showed full charge on the sensors. 1 minute. Taeyang found himself holding his breath. Around him, every officer sat frozen at their stations. This was it. Everything came down to this moment. "Broadcast ready," Min-jae said quietly. "Sending." The data burst from Harmony 7's communication array. Thousands of files, images, records, all at once. It flooded through the communication network like a wave. Every major station received it. Earth, Mars, the Belt colonies, the other alien species with diplomatic relations, evidence of centuries of abduction, experimentation, and disposal of sentient beings. All of it now public. All of it undeniable. On the screen, the Velen ship's weapons stayed charged. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then, slowly, they began to power down. The Velen officer appeared on the screen again. They looked furious and frightened at the same time. "You have made a grave mistake, humans." "Maybe," Hee-won said. "But it's done now. The whole galaxy knows the truth. What happens next is your choice. You can attack us and confirm everything in those files, or you can back down and face the consequences like civilized beings." The Velen said nothing. The screen went dark again. The 3 cruisers held their position for another minute. Then, slowly, they began to turn away. Within 10 minutes, they were gone, jumping to faster-than-light travel and disappearing from sensors. The command center erupted in cheers. Officers hugged each other, shouted with relief. They had gambled everything on a bluff, and it had worked. Taeyang sagged against the wall, exhausted. Lyra stood beside him, staring at the empty screen where the cruisers had been. "They'll be back," she said quietly. "Maybe not today, but someday. There will be consequences. Let them come," Taeyang replied. "We'll deal with it. That's what humans do. We adapt." Hee-won approached them, a rare smile on her face. "Good work, both of you. Park, you're getting a commendation. Lyra, the UN is granting you asylum. You'll be protected here." "Thank you, Commander." "Don't thank me yet. You'll be asked to testify about everything in those files. It's going to get messy. I'm ready." Over the next few days, the galaxy exploded with the news. The Velen Consortium faced investigations from multiple species. Their government collapsed as different factions blamed each other. The experiments stopped, the victims' families were notified, and justice slowly began. Taeyang spent those days recovering. His shoulder healed faster than expected. The doctors said he was lucky. He thought it was more than luck. It was Lyra carrying him when he couldn't walk. It was Hee-won making the hard choice. It was Min-jae thinking fast. It was humans being human. On his first day back to duty, he found Lyra waiting outside the command center. She looked different. Stronger. More confident. "I asked to stay your assignment," she said. "Commander Choi approved it. If that's acceptable to you." Taeyang smiled. "The job's more interesting now anyway." They walked down the corridor together. No longer guard and prisoner. No longer human and alien. Just 2 people who had fought together and survived. "Will you teach me more?" Lyra asked. "About human tactics, human thinking." "Sure. Lesson 1. Sometimes, the easy assignment is just the beginning." She made a sound that might have been laughter. Her translator was gone now. She had learned to speak human languages without it. One more, adaptation. Outside the viewing window, Neptune swirled in its eternal storms. Beautiful and terrible, like many things, but also constant. Enduring, just like humans. Just like the alliance they had built in a locked room, facing impossible odds, the galaxy had changed. The Velans had fallen. And it had all started because one human refused to give up, and one alien decided to trust in human stubbornness. Looking after an alien woman had been easy. Everything after the door clicked shut had been hard. But they had made it through together, and that made all the difference.